I was curious about AI's ability to edit and review my writing. And so, what I decided to do was take my novel that I want to publish, Traitor's Eye, and put it into ChatGPT and see what the results were and whether its comments and whether its edits were any good. So, first of all, just a note about this because it's something that I really kind of wrestled with for a while. When we put things into AI, we don't know where it goes. And that was a bit of a concern for me. I don't think I would put my other books in. The beginning of the trilogy, the second book as well, a trilogy series. I don't know how many books I'm going to write on that. So that's just an aside. I did decide though that because this is a book that I want to publish soon, that I did want to get a holistic idea and get some feedback on that. So I did, first of all, I converted the book to a PDF and I uploaded it to ChatGPT to get the feedback. I asked ChatGPT if it understood it, if it could read a PDF, and it said yes. I don't think it was telling the truth, or I didn't understand because the feedback I got was not very comprehensive. It was very generalistic. It was like, you've got a really good idea, well building, this could do with some changes. And so what I decided to do after that was take the novel and copy each chapter into the AI and get the feedback from that. And so this is a video to kind of explore what the results were. And I wanted to break it down into kind of the positives of that, what is not so good and what it really did not do that well, and then kind of conclude whether we still need human developmental editors. So follow all the way to the end to see that conclusion. One of the things I found really incredible about this was that it really does think deeply as to the structure of the chapter. So it was able to give some really good feedback. And I did actually take a lot of it and put it into use because it was really valuable. I really felt that it improved my writing. It prompted me to take a look at things that I've written. Again, when you're writing so long, you can't see the wood through the trees. It wasn't a chance to sit back and look at things and be like, yeah, actually, that makes a really good point. And so I was able to do some really good editing from the highlighting of those things. It focused a lot on specific things, so character, exposition, tension, pace, and world building as well. It was able to pick out when I'd say I perhaps showed a character being a bit too one-dimensional, perhaps not having more elements of doubt, perhaps raising the tension as well. I think it was able to give some really good feedback on that. Another thing it does well is looks at making some changes to language, which is really sometimes can be quite subtle, but it can be really impactful. So, for example, I'd written about one of my characters, the years had been good to him. And one of the suggested edits were the years had been kind to him. So that's quite a small change, but that subtle change really did kind of make it smoother and make it a better piece of writing. And so I appreciated that. There was also one bit at the beginning, I was talking about one of my characters smoking a pipe. And I was saying he was smoking it and he was puffing out like a chimney. And the suggested edit was there was a smoky haze around him. And I really like that kind of flamboyant language. It certainly livened it up and really it helped improve the imagery of the scene. And it was like hazy smoke curling around softly. And I did like that. I thought that was a nice rhetorical flourish, which I thought, actually, I'm going to take this. I think this is a better version of what I'd written, and I'm going to use it. It's able to pick up plot holes, and it does ask some really good questions that a developmental editor would ask. It would say, this character is angry, but why? And this character seems to say this, but wouldn't the character have also thought this? And it's things that like that which really get you thinking, yeah, actually I need to change this, I need to add on this. And that's kind of feedback that really helps improve you as a writer. And that's a fantastic thing that AI and ChatGPT are able to come out with. It also pushes me to show more and tell less. It's very good at picking that out. So authors, especially who are beginning or just generally have struggle with that. I've been writing for years and I still sometimes have problems with showing and telling. So it was able to pick out some of the text and say, you need to show more. You're telling too much here. You need to show this. How about making this into a flashback? And it's able to make some really cool suggestions, which you're able then to act on as the author. And it pushes you to provide more insight as well. So have you considered what X character thought in this moment? What perhaps there's a reasoning for what you're saying here. Perhaps something's happened in the past, and it really gives a lot of food for thought. Now let's look at the negatives of this, because when I put the chapters in, while being very impressed, there were some things that really stood out. For example, one of the things that I set out as a positive was the flowery language and the rhetorical bursts and flourishes, which were really valuable and really good, and actually a genuine improvement on some of the things. But it can go too far. So, for example, I had a scene where one of my characters had a ring and he decided to toss it in a fire. Just as an aside, I'm not ripping off Lord of the Rings, and it has nothing. The ring is a very inconsequential piece in this, and just wanted to put it out there. I'd written that the character had taken the ring and he tossed it into the fire and walked off. And then one of the suggested edits from ChatGPT was, with a flick of his wrist, he threw the ring into the fire. So yes, that is more flamboyant. But with a flick of the wrist, it sounds like you're playing tennis or something like that. It doesn't capture the essence of what I wanted to convey. He was throwing a ring because he didn't want to have it anymore. There's a fine line with that, and I think ChatGPT sometimes really crosses over that. And sometimes it can seem like it's swallowed a thesaurus and it's coming out with just unnecessarily complex words when you don't need those to convey what you wanted to say. So while some of the feedback can be really good, some of it can be really vague. So I can't remember how many times it kept saying, you've got this builds tension, and with more character development, with more pacing, and with more world building, you can really make this a fantastic novel. And every single chapter had that. In some cases I did realize, yes, actually it is right, but then in other cases it wasn't, and the criticism was just very generic. Another thing as well that's not so good is that it can be contradictory. So on one hand, it was telling me, yes, this has too much exposition, you should break this up a bit. And then on the other hand, it says in the same chapter, you need to world build here, you need to give us more backstory. So it's like, what is it? Is this too info heavy? Is this a bit of an info dump? Or is it too info bare? Another really, really important thing, and this is a key difference with what a human would do, is that it loses perspective from the other chapters. So when it's analyzing a chapter, it actually analyzes it in isolation. And this is why at the beginning I uploaded the whole book so it could see things holistically. And as I wasn't able to analyze that, I did each chapter. But then it started coming up with some inconsistencies. So in my book, there are two characters, one called Kilorn, the main character, and Yonmir, and they're both bitter rivals. I've actually got a blog post there, so if you want to check it out, you can click on down below in the comment section. I've left a link to the blog there. And I clearly laid out in the first few chapters that there was a really bitter rivalry between them. And then in one of the later chapters that it analyzed, it was like, I don't understand why Yonmir has so much antipathy to Kilorn. This just comes out of nowhere. Perhaps there was a rivalry, perhaps there was a history. And it's like, yeah, that was back in chapter 3 or chapter 2. You know, where have you been? Have you been reading this? But it's a problem with the AI that it's not able to coherently analyze things from that far back. And so it's kind of clutching at straws. And you have to be aware of that to know, actually, you know, I have dealt with this and it doesn't know what it's talking about. In conclusion, can AI replace human developmental editors? And my answer it would be absolutely not. If you've finished your book or you're writing and you've done a few chapters, I think it's amazing to get some initial feedback, to put it into AI. We'll pick out some points which will highlight, perhaps where you could do with some improvement in pacing in other areas as well. But it also, I think, has some fixed ideas as to what needs improvement. So one of the consistent things that it kept coming up with was the character development needs more work here, and the pacing of the plot. And while that can be all very, very good, sometimes you may want to slow the pace down. Perhaps you want to go superficially over one area of something because you're building something up to another bigger exposition of something. And AI cannot understand what we as humans innately, and we as authors know what we're trying to build and why we've done some things. Sometimes they can really be helpful in picking out an error. We haven't put enough detail here. But when we've specifically written something, it cannot comprehend that and it cannot pick up on that. It's going to give you some feedback that is not particularly helpful, or you're going to be like, why didn't you understand that? And it's because it's AI. And to be honest as well with AI, while I think it's a fantastic tool and it has really benefited me, honestly, I've had better feedback from beta readers who've been able to read things and understand and question things and say, this section seems to be lacking this. And the detailed feedback that I've got from the beta readers, as well as picking out some of the grammatical errors and some of the geological things as well, like I'd misused sulfur and I thought it was one thing and actually wasn't, and they were able to help me out of that. I'm not a scientist. These subtleties kind of go over AI's head, so to speak, and so I think actually some of the beta readers and what they've been able to capture and the subtleties that they're able to pick up on have been more valuable than AI. And I'm sure when I come to actually using a developmental editor, that will be even more so. So do I think that developmental editors are still going to be needed and are going to be kept in jobs despite AI? Absolutely. So that's the video. Let me know your thoughts on AI. Do you use it for editing? Have you used it? Would you use it? If not, why not? Put in the comments below. If you like this video and you want to see more about my journey and follow me as I take you on a journey and how I navigate these different and new things in the publishing world, then please click like below on the video, click subscribe and click the notification bell as well so you get updated when I put new videos out, and see you next time.